And good morning, everybody. It is 9/11. Today, there will be plenty of commemorations and thoughts and remembrances of the day going forward. I want to open up the day by always, since this thing's happened, I always open up with a bit of positivity and say happy birthday to my beautiful cousin, Brittany. She's the one I joke about being ugly, but she's beautiful. She's intelligent. She's ambitious. And she just got voted one of Florida's 40 under 40. So I think she's got that going for her. And of course, what little I have going for me is the fact that today is Bubble Friday. So Bubble Friday, I'm not a 40 under 40, but I got something going for me. Bubble Friday is a little thing that the basically ginned up about 8 years ago. I have to actually go look back at the time and actually write that down so I can say when it is. But when I was working at a previous job, there were a lot of people who were just sort of down in the dumps because of situations that the way the workplace was going, and we just needed some way to blow off steam and just kind of relax and chill for a bit. And it literally turned into going to the dollar store, buying some bubbles and blowing bubbles and giggling and laughing and doing silly stuff during the breaks. And it turned into a fairly cool thing. And I had some other folks catch on to it because Facebook existed. So people saw it and say, hey, can I do this thing? And I was like, sure, why not? And so it was a pretty cool thing among some friends and some coworkers. And eventually, it sort of went away. And then a few months back, with all the craziness going on, and one friend said, dude, we need to bring back Bubble Friday. And I was like, yeah, we're going to do that. Of course, my whole life and situation changed. So doing it has been a different situation. There's no longer just people congregating out behind the building in the smoke area, just kind of blowing bubbles. It's here. This is basically the best time I have to do it is right before I get ready to take on my new job, which takes on a whole life of its own. So it's Bubble Friday. So take some time today, and I suggest you buy some bubbles. You may look silly coming out of Walmart with a big pack of bubbles. They come in large packs. It's amazing. They're like packs of 12. It's like the smallest size you can get in some cases. And celebrate the fact that you survived the week. And if it's not your full work week, you survived 5 days a week in general, and you're preparing for something else. If you can't get bubbles, then just sit back and find some time to take a breath, blow it out, and just be glad in the fact that you have survived a whole nother batch of whatever. Because some people went hard against a couple things and did not work out so well for them. And so you have today to celebrate, and you are anticipating having the next couple days to celebrate. We never go too far past a couple days, especially if you're talking about weather. So that's there. So the reason why this is labeled the 9/11 edition is because today is 9/11, and today's message is dealing a bit with that. And it's a question. It's two questions technically. What is the difference between never forget and always remember? And I purposely didn't do a lot of deep dive and research into the phrases and where they came from. But today is a day that I will never forget the situations, the things going on, the what's going in my life and what's going on literally in real time on September 11, 2001, 19 years ago. However, when I look at other large things, there are times where I often forget what's going on. December 7th is a day that'll live in infamy, and I forget it all the time until the middle of the day where something pops up that's one of those day in history things that reminds you, oh, that's Pearl Harbor Day. D-Day is a pretty big, significant day in the world. It was the day that the Allied troops went to Normandy to start their major offensive to take back the land in Europe and overtake the Nazis and the Axis powers to take that over. I have no idea. I can't even remember when that date comes up until a reminder pops up. Why? Because I'm 46 years old. And D-Day and Pearl Harbor Day didn't happen to me in my lifetime, my conscious lifetime, or as a matter of fact, to change my life at that point in time. The events were just way too in the past to make an actual impact on my life directly. I have no family members who had anything significant to do with World War II, so none of that makes any real difference other than the fact that it's a history lesson. And to many people, honestly, under the age of 20, those dates are literally trick questions that they get from the history books. There's a little context in those things because they're so far removed from the situations. Now, something that really makes me a bit more attached to World War II, those things, is I've always followed military actions. I did time in the military. And of course, I spent 3 years in high school, 8th grade through 10th grade high school, in Germany. And I got to see a lot of those things in real life and in its living history. If you go to a museum where they present things in a living way, you see a different perspective. And going to those places, seeing where they were, seeing how they were laid out, and oddly enough, seeing how the natives actually treated those things and actually talked about those things, which is a whole nother thing in itself, gave me a different perspective so that when I came back to the States, I was extremely tuned into those type of things. Also extremely tuned into military things. And that was part of it as well. On September 11th, 2001, I woke up in a hotel room in Salt Lake City because I was there for a conference. I was in the Air Force, and the mostly ironic thing was that was a day that I was officially promoted to captain. I officially pinned on my captain rank. I just got promoted. The Friday, it was a Monday. The Friday prior, I had a ceremony where my parents and my niece at the time, who was 1 year old, were there to do the pinning ceremony because my boss was like, I know you got to go to this conference. This conference is going to take a lot of time. I know you're going to be busy after that because I was actually going to 3 different TDYs. I wasn't coming back home for about 2.5 weeks after that weekend. And my boss, my former boss, who shifted out to another spot, and my current boss was like, he needs to have this. This is something he has to have. This is something that this is a one-time thing that you will never forget. So you need to have this ceremony. So they arranged to have it on Friday afternoon while everybody was just sort of chilling out and getting ready for the big conference. My parents rolled in with my niece, and it was a thing. And then Monday morning, I woke up in the hotel. It's the day that all the check-in and registration is happening. Woke up my normal time. It's fairly early, and back in those days, I slept with the TV on, and I slept with CNN on because I was watching news. And so I woke up to the news and CNN, and I'm waking up and watching the video, or actually it's live, so it's not really video, it's live coverage of one of the Twin Towers and the smoke coming out. And I'm listening to the coverage because I'm just waking up and kind of get into it. And the commentators trying to figure out what's going on, because at the time, no one really knew what was happening. And then someone called in and had someone on the phone that was talking about it and basically saying that a plane kind of came in from out of nowhere and just flew into it. And they were trying to break that down and do whatever and try to figure out, was it a commuter plane? Was it some sort of, sky plane that flies around in town, just sort of just doing tours? What type of plane was going on? And I literally audibly said, after about 5 minutes of all this, how can a plane literally fly directly into a building that's so obviously there in a city like that? And within 60 seconds, the second plane went into the second tower. And because of the shock situation, I audibly said, "Oh, I guess that's how a plane can fly into a building that's right there." Of course, at that point in time, the world knew something was wrong. We later found out, because a plane went down at the Pentagon, that there was another target out there. And then we later found out, because of the plane that went down in Pennsylvania, that there was another target that was potential to happen, that was thwarted by the passengers in the plane. And at that point in time, all planes were grounded for a week. Everything was taken down immediately. People were just stuck where they were because everything went down. All military bases, all federal buildings, all things shut down to a halt. As I said, excuse me, I was in Salt Lake City at a hotel, getting ready to prepare for a week-long conference that my shop was working on. It was dealing with defense stuff and GPS and satellites and all that stuff. That it was a week-long conference, and everybody was talking. I was fairly new to the group. I've been at that group, just been stationed there a couple months, and they were talking up the whole situation about this big conference, how big it was. And if you were a techie guy and a nerdy guy in early 2000s or late 90s into the tech at the time, this would have been a haven for you for what was going on there. But we were there. The group was there the day before because we had a pretty big booth to set up. Because technology and because internet and because social media wasn't what it was just kind of hellish all over the place. All the bases went to high alert. Basically, everybody that was near base got called in, but it was 2-3 hours getting into a base because everyone's car was being checked, everyone's ID was being checked, everyone's personality was being checked. And we had people who, at that point in time, were essentially would have been early for work, who barely made it into base that day. There was no information going on because at that point in time, there was no information known. And within a couple hours, all of the networks, literally all the networks, went to some sort of coverage from a cable news network, or they went to a full feed of what was going on live there. ESPN broke away from sports and switched over to the ABC feed, Good Morning America, and ABC newscast, because there was nothing to talk about. By evening, there was wrap-up stuff and just sort of remembrance of things going on. But we watched as the towers fell. We saw pictures of people walking through rubble. We watched as the things happened. We learned more information about the Pentagon and Pennsylvania, all those things going on. And those are things that I can never forget because I lived them. So I will never forget those things. But Pearl Harbor Day, it's a day that I should always remember. Not because I actually remember any of those things, but because I have the wherewithal to learn those things, and I should try my best to remember those things and give honor to those things on that end. I can easily forget all those things because I didn't learn them. I didn't live them. So they're not things that are really ingrained inside of me. So is there a difference between never forget and always remember? If you live through something or love someone who done something amazing and they're gone, or that the situation is blown away for whatever reason, you will remember all the things that go along with those things. You will remember those things that go along with those things. And then you will do whatever you can to hold on to those memories and never forget how those things live. But if you only hear about things secondhand, or you come in and you inherit some sort of knowledge from other folks who tell you about the great things that the other guy used to do, these are things that often are hard to forget once you hear them, but you have to actually remember to bring them up. So on a day like today, you have to kind of see how things go. My stepson, who is 25, will not forget a lot of things around September 11, but he probably does not remember the conversations that we had around those things. I didn't get to meet him till about 2.5 years, 3 years later from the actual event. And from that standpoint, at his age, he being basically 9, 10 years old, all he knew was there's this weird war going on, and I hope I don't have to go to war anytime soon. My 8-year-old, who obviously not even a thought in this process, is bright enough to figure out when they talk about it that it's something that's there, but it really doesn't register to anything else. My service doesn't register to her. What went on in the world doesn't register to her. And right now, while she is very aware of things going on coronavirus-ish, she is in the 3rd grade. And so this is a part of time. 3rd grade was really big for me because that's basically the time where I actually remember things. There's some 2nd grade memories that are sort of there, and some things from beforehand that are here or there that were really, really big. But 3rd grade was a part where I sort of got conscious to what was going on. And right now she's at that part where she's conscious of things going on. So this will be one of the first things she will probably remember in bits and pieces. And because we're humans, eventually there'll be another tragedy, another big event that will brand on our brain to be stuck with us forever. But she's not reached any never forget things yet because she's 8. My son, I'm sure he remembers it because when it happened, he was of age to remember those things, but the bits and pieces around it get lost. Quick example, the Challenger explosion. Because I was in grade school, I can't even remember exactly which grade it was. I think it was 7th grade. I'm guessing it was 7th grade. I know I was in middle school. And I know the events around it, the Challenger explosion, because a lot of kids around the nation were watching the Challenger go up into the air and saw the explosion. The first civilian teacher was going on a space flight, and it was cool, and she was going to teach us stuff in space. My class happened to be at lunch when it happened. So when we returned back from lunch and started talking with other people sort of in conversation, we found out about it. So where were you when the Challenger happened? I was in school. I was at lunch. It took me 30 minutes to find out what happened. I can't forget that, but I often don't remember it until it's brought up. The other big thing, which is not a personal example, is, of course, what happened? Where were you when John F. Kennedy was shot? What was going on? This was an extremely big moment in our history, world history, if you will. And there are people who will bring out long and detailed and very descriptive thoughts on what was going on in their lives, where they were when they heard about it, and what went going through. Similar to Martin Luther King Jr., another similar figure in that sense. Similar to Ronald Reagan. When Ronald Reagan was shot, that was a very, very big traumatic event. I remember bits and pieces of that. It didn't affect me, I guess, closely per se, but as a piece of history, I remember the bits and pieces of that and what went all around that, and just literally legislation in the world changing because of that situation. Kids in their 20s remember Sandy Hook and right now Parkland, which is very fresh, and things like that, as things that define them going on, because those are the biggest things that happen in their lives. And those are things that cause people to change their course of history, change the way they're doing. All those kids that survived the Parkland incident going on to instantly be celebrities and instantly be fighters for justice is something that doesn't happen every day and shouldn't happen as often as it does, but situations warrant it. So on a day like today, whatever those days are for you, it could be a big event like 9/11. It could be a personal event for yourself, a day you lost a loved one, a day you had a very large change in your life. I have a sort of a weird visceral effect on the day that I was fired from a dream job, because it reminds me of things. Based on your point of reference and basically how long ago it's been, there's two categories that you fall into when those ideas come up. Are you going to never forget, or are you going to always remember? The always remember is a little harder because you have to be literally sort of taught it. Never forget means it's ingrained in you for a while, and it takes a lot of other life things to wash it away. And there can be plenty of things in life that will wash that old thing away. But just think about it. Celebrate life today, especially on a day like today, because we know a lot can change in a moment. Today was a example that 19 years ago where a lot changed for a lot of people in mere moments. Congratulations for getting up, getting after it, watching this video. Yes, watching this video. Some people did not wake up to have a day to commemorate, celebrate, commiserate, do anything at all. Some people woke up and just couldn't find the energy and ability to do much anything else. So congratulations. Today is a day where you should take a little moment to definitely kick back and enjoy the celebration of life. It's Friday, so blow some bubbles if you got them. Any kind of bubbles you want to, even the tiny bubbles in the wine. Today might be a good day for a couple of those. Think about some folks that you've lost. Think about some people that you've gained from some of these situations. And just think about your life in general. How's it going? If it's not going so great, there's a lot of us who aren't doing so great. Reach out. We'll chat. I'm here somewhere in the ethers in my phone. As it rings all the time, I pretty much always pick it up. So with that, I've gone a little longer than I normally do. I think this one was actually fairly articulate message. I did a little extra time sort of thinking it out this morning, although there were some ad libs popping in there. I'm sure you saw that. So just think about it. Give me some comments, yays or nays. Let me know if you watched it in the real time or in the future, as the thing will live on in the ethers of the internets for as long as the digital bits are out there. And if we hadn't talked in a while, just reach out and say hey. I would say hey, because there's been a lot of us disconnected because of COVID-19 issues, and so I'd like to get connected with a lot more folks again. Till we do this again next time, hopefully on Monday for Welcome to Your Monday. We'll talk to you soon.